particularly as the UK wants to become a crypto hub with specific regulations tailored to crypto companies? Is that where you're looking to put more of your operations going forward?
Absolutely. So our large hub offices, of course, we have a presence in the US, but our presence in London has grown significantly over the years. That office has more than doubled in size, and we have a pretty large footprint in terms of our customer base throughout Europe and the Middle East. Dubai is another key office for us, as well as Singapore. So we've seen a lot of growth through Europe, Middle East, Asia Pacific, and Latin America has been a region that has certainly been heating up for us. We have a key office.
I would tell you that outside of the US, the SEC case, had almost no impact on our ability to get conversations and projects going with central banks. I know here in the US we focus a lot on the US, that's what you'd expect, but the reality is that the rest of the world does not see things the same way. I think it's been clear for a while that countries like the UK and Switzerland and Japan have been very clear that XRP is not a security. So anyway, moving on to the CBDC side, it's not really been an impediment. Since we started 2.5 years ago on this project, we've announced 5 different countries that are working with us. We have a similar number that are not announced, and then we have 20 plus other active discussions on the way. So we've announced 5 different countries that are working with us. We have a similar number that are not announced, and then we have 20 plus other active discussions on the way.
Coins. Now, how does PolySign play a role here? Because I've heard you mention that in other broadcasts.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's a custodial thing. I think they would run a buyback through it.
Do you still think a buyback is what they're going to do?
100%.
And do you have a number, or you want to save that till the end?
I mean, there's all kinds of numbers thrown around, but what I can tell you, it's going to be a 6-figure number.
That's a beautiful thing. I'll take that all day long. Thank you, God.
Yeah, it is. And it's, we have to remember that the number of people that own XRP is a very, very small percentage of the population. So
yeah, and
the new 1%, but here, let me just say this. It's folks like us that are being entrusted with, a large majority of the wealth that is to be had in the new world. These past few years of us waiting for this operation are not just us waiting. We're being developed and trained
yes,
to be leaders. I mean, we have to be leaders. When all of this goes down, and down it will go, and it will go fast, the majority of the human race is not going to have any idea what's going on. So a lot of that falls to us, and especially, once we get past a lot of the horrors of the coming D class, people aren't going to be the same for a long time. And
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Peter Van Valkenburg, and I'm the Director of Research at Coin Center, an independent nonprofit focused on the public policy issues affecting cryptocurrency and public blockchain networks. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the world's first cryptocurrency, and it works because of the world's first public blockchain network. What does Bitcoin do? It's simple. It lets you send and receive value to and from anyone in the world using nothing more than a computer and an internet connection. Now, why is it revolutionary? Because unlike every other tool for sending money over the internet, it works without the need to trust a middleman. The lack of any corporation in between means that Bitcoin is the world's first public digital payments infrastructure. And by public, I simply mean available to all and not owned by any single entity. Now, we have public infrastructure for information, for websites, for email. It's called the internet. But the only public payments infrastructure that we have is cash, as in paper money. And it only works in face-to-face transactions. Before Bitcoin, if you wanted to pay someone remotely over the phone or the internet, then you could not use public infrastructure. You would rely on a private bank to open their books and add a ledger entry that debits you and credits the person you're paying. And if you both don't use the same bank, well, then there'll be multiple banks and multiple ledger entries in between. With Bitcoin, the ledger is the public blockchain, and anyone can add an entry to that ledger, transferring their Bitcoins to someone else. And anyone, regardless of their nationality, race, religion, gender, sex, or creditworthiness, can for absolutely no cost create a Bitcoin address in order to receive payments digitally. Bitcoin is the world's first globally accessible public money. Is it perfect? No. Neither was email when it was invented in 1972. Bitcoin's not the best money on every margin. It's not yet accepted everywhere. It's not used often to quote prices, and it's not always a stable store of value. But it is working, and the mere fact that it works without trusted intermediaries is amazing. It's a computer science breakthrough, and it will be as significant for freedom, prosperity, and human flourishing as the birth of the internet. And Bitcoin is just the beginning. If we can replace private payments infrastructure, then we can replace other private choke points to human interaction as well. Now, why should we want to build more public infrastructure? Why should we embrace blockchains over corporate intermediaries? Why should we tolerate their inefficiencies and work to make them better? Why should we want the pioneers of this technology here in the United States and not fleeing overseas? A simple reason. Because the corporate intermediaries providing today's critical but privately owned infrastructure are becoming fewer, larger, and more powerful, and their failures are increasingly grave. So roughly half of all Americans, 143 million people, had their Social Security numbers exposed to hackers because of a breach at Equifax. The SWIFT network has relayed hundreds of millions of dollars in fraudulent transactions because of hacked member banks in Bangladesh, Vietnam, Ecuador, and Russia. The FBI suspects now that the largest of these hacks was perpetrated by North Korea. Corrupt, low-level employees at an Indian bank, Punjab National, were able to fraudulently certify SWIFT messages, stealing $1.8 billion. It's the largest electronic bank robbery in history. In fact, it's the largest bank robbery in history. In October 2016, an estimated 1.2 million internet-connected devices were hacked and turned into a botnet that for several hours made prominent websites unavailable across Europe and North America, including CNN and Fox News, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. Increasingly, physical machines are being connected to the internet to augment their capabilities. They're wired through servers that are owned and maintained by private and trusted intermediaries, the so-called Internet of Things. Pacemakers from St. Jude's Hospital have been hacked. Baby monitors from TrendNet have been hacked. And Jeeps from Jeep have been hacked to the point where they can be remotely commandeered and driven off the road. Now, those vulnerabilities are inescapable in systems that have single points of failure. It doesn't matter if the point of failure is a corporation or if it's a government. There shouldn't be a single point of failure. Similar choke points existed before the internet. If you wanted to deliver a message, you'd have to go through one of 3 television broadcasters or a handful of newspapers. Private corporations are essential, but no critical infrastructure should rely on 1 or 2. The internet removed single points of failure in communications infrastructure and ushered in a wave of competition among new media corporations building on top of its public rails. Blockchains can similarly disintermediate critical payments and IoT infrastructure. The technology is not yet ready to answer all of those questions today, but it is our best hope. And as with the internet in the 1990s, we need a light touch, pro-innovation policy to ensure that these innovations flourish in America for the benefit and security of all Americans.
People don't believe it when I share with them my schedule. Well, I wake up usually around 4:30.
Memorandum of Understanding to establish our digital asset custodian, called Zodia, here in the DIFC. Now, 5 years ago, we weren't talking about a digital asset custodian in Standard Chartered Bank.
How big can that be, Bill? This is becoming a hub for crypto. It's very, very clear it's an ambition. So from an MOU to dollars, tell me what it can be.
So we have, Zodia is our digital asset custodian, and I do make the distinction between digital assets and crypto.
Okay.
Today, crypto is the bulk of what is digital assets today. When we look forward 5 or 10 years from now, I think we'll find vast swathes of the financial architecture that has been tokenized. That could include central bank digital currencies, which of course exist to some extent so far, but they're quite small at this point. Stable coins, tokenized real assets, whether it's, Jenny talks about effectively the digitization or tokenization of money market funds, right? These are trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that could find themselves in tokenized form. And there's an underlying infrastructure that's different for distributed ledger technology relative to the current state of play. And to the extent that Dubai or anyone else can get ahead of the game and make sure that infrastructure is embedded in the local infrastructure, but also regulated from here, gives you a huge head start in terms of building that industry over time.
Well, that digitization that Jenny talked about, in many ways, handed the power to decide what.
At some point, the world is going to go into a crisis, or a country is going to go into a crisis. It might be the UK, it might be Italy, it might even be the United States. But something is going to happen. Things are very, very taut in the financial world at the moment. When that happens, I think they will close the banks. You'll wake up on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning and hear the news that they've shut the banks, not going to open on Monday. And then by Monday evening or Tuesday, you'll get the announcement that we're having a new currency, the CBDC, and don't worry, it'll be 1-to-1 against the old currency. But there'll be some restrictions on your ability to convert your old money into the new money. So if you're poor and you have a small bank account, it'll be converted 1-to-1 straight away. And you'll probably even find that you get a free gift from the government to get kickstart the system. Maybe £3,000 or £5,000 will be given to every citizen gratuitously to kickstart the system in the new CBDC. But if you have 100,000 or 1 million in the bank, you're going to be told, yes, it's 1-to-1, but you're going to have to wait to convert it to the new currency. Now, wait means never. We all know that. But they won't tell you that. They'll say it's a temporary suspension because we're in the middle of a crisis. The people are rioting in the streets. We need to calm the system. So here's some free money, everybody. Go and enjoy yourselves. And by the way, the rich can't convert their money for a while, but they'll be able to do so later.
You take speculation out of it. What do you think is going to make that XRP price rise?
Well, there's a limited amount of XRP in the world. 100 billion sounds like a big number. But look, what is XRP competing with? Right now in the correspondent banking system, banks have to deposit money, nostro, vostro, all around the world. So there's pots of liquidity so that things can move from one silo to another. The way that all works is with pre-funded liquidity. And all that pre-funded liquidity happens in all the different fiat currencies of the world. So if you really want to be able to service money all around and move it, you've got to have all these pre-funded pots and all these different currencies. But if you could agree on one currency and one that you could replenish, not just 9 to 5, but 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you'd need less liquidity because you could see that when you're getting low, you can restock. And how long does it take to restock? 3 seconds. How much does it cost to restock? Less than a penny. And so the advantage of XRP is it's a much more efficient method of moving liquidity around. It would be like having an engine that ran on a teacup of oil rather than a gallon of oil. Everything still needs liquidity. Pre-funding is good, but when you can top up your pre-funding in 3 seconds, you need a lot less oil in the engine for the engine to work well. And that's what Ripple brought to the market.
Are you saying that a lot of that nostro money one day is going to be in XRP? Is that the ultimate goal?
Oh, it's going to be replaced. It's going to be replaced by XRP. And so that just that demand for the thimble of oil, like that thimble is pretty big. And so if all the banks need just enough XRP to handle their liquidity requirements, and you also have money transmitters doing it, and maybe even just major corporations are doing it as well. They're just posting their own liquidity around. Everybody needs less liquidity than they needed nostro and vostro fiat currency, but that's still a lot of practical need for XRP. And so I think Ripple's done some of those calculations. If each bank around the world and each other regulated financial institution had just enough XRP for their liquidity needs, that would create amazing practical demand for XRP all around the world. Just like there's only 20